Hello and welcome to Did You Know? I'm so glad to be here with you again today. I'm here in the African bush in Africa. Kathy and I are taking a couple of days of R&R just before we come back to the United States. And I thought of just taking this time and sharing some truths with you and taking this opportunity to speak to you today about the truth and how we speak the truth. Did you know that when we speak the truth, when we preach, when we teach, we should never be compromised and we should never compromise the truth in any way, shape, or form. But when we speak the truth, when we preach the truth, when we communicate the truth to people, we need to do it in love. You know, I've heard many ministers, many Christians, talk about, I'm going to share the truth, and I'm going to give you the truth, and I don't care, how you receive it or how you take it, because it's the truth, and I'm on the side of truth, and I'm not going to compromise. And I totally agree with the fact that we are not to compromise the truth in any way, shape, or form. Not at all. But Paul tells us in Ephesians, and I'm going to read this to you out of Ephesians chapter 4 and verses 14 and 15. Now, verse 14, Paul says, that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men and the cunning craftiness whereby they lay in wait to deceive. So verse 14, he tells us very clearly, we are not to be ignorant. We are not to be immature in our approach to the people around us, the people we speak to, the people we minister to, the people we teach, the people we witness to. He says we shouldn't be immature. We shouldn't be tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. And then he says, we should be aware of the sleight of men and the cunning craftiness whereby they lay in wait to deceive. And so, there are people who would be used of the old enemy just to deceive us and to deceive many. And so we need to be aware of that. And so we need to speak the truth. Therefore, in verse 15, he says, but speak the truth. Now, he says we need to speak the truth. In these circumstances, situations, in our witnessing, in our preaching, our teaching, we ought to speak the truth. But he says, speak the truth in love. And he says, speak the truth in love, may grow up unto him in all things, which is the head, even Christ. He says, when we speak the truth, but we speak it in love, we grow up into him, and we grow up into his stature. He's the head, even Christ. So, that's what Jesus did in every circumstance, situation in which Jesus ministered to people. He ministered to people the truth. He never compromised the truth, but he did so in love. And I think that when we minister and teach people, we need to do it in love. So to teach and to speak the truth in love, what does it mean? Well, I believe it means to allow all of the attributes of God's love to be, as it were, the track upon which our approach, our teaching, our speaking the truth runs. That means that when we speak the truth, the track upon which our teaching, our preaching, our witnessing runs should be all of the attributes of God's love. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 through verse 3, in fact, the whole chapter is known as the love chapter. But I just want to kind of single out these first 3 verses. Paul writes, and he says, though I speak with tongues of men and of angels, and have not love, I am become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith that I could remove mountains and have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burnt and have not love, it profits me nothing. Well, Paul begins this chapter by saying and explaining that no matter how justified you might be in what you're sharing, the truth that you're sharing, no matter how true your statements and your beliefs may be, if it is not communicated, if it's not brought with the attributes of God's love, all you're doing is you are a sounding cymbal, a tinkling cymbal, or a sounding brass. I guess somebody would even say you're sounding like an empty head. The truth is the truth, but if it's not brought on the track of God's love and the attributes of God's love, then it's hollow. It has no meaning. It has no impact in people's lives. So when you and I bring the truth, when we speak the truth, when we teach, when we preach, when we witness, when we talk to people about the truths of the finished work of Jesus Christ, these attributes, God's attributes, should be the mold and the shape of everything we say, of everything we are communicating, and how we communicate, and when we communicate. Speaking the truth is very important, but sometimes it's not the right time to bring the truth, and so we should in love be able to go and say, you know what, now's not the right time to share this. I'm going to hold back and I'm going to share it at the right time. You see, we should, as the scripture continues here in 1 Corinthians, we should suffer long. You see, the love of God suffers long and is kind. Paul says it suffers long and is kind, and it is not self-seeking. It's not puffed up. No matter how right you think you are, we should never come with a puffed up, I know better attitude, because I'm right, and because I have the right to say this, and I have the right to bring this down on you. That's not the way it is. You see, love, the track upon which the speaking of truth goes, suffers long, is kind. We shouldn't be puffed up thinking that we are right and they are wrong, and I'm going to tell them how wrong they are and how right I am. We have the right to say what we want to say, but we need to know when to say it and how to say it. Let us therefore, and let me encourage you, don't compromise the truth ever. In no way, shape or form. Don't compromise the truth. But ask yourself the question that when you are going to share the truth, am I sharing this truth in love? Let us rejoice in truth. Let us rejoice in the validity of truth, but let us do so by bearing with other people. And what I mean by bearing is allowing them to walk their walk with God and to, as it were, walk their path in grace and in truth. And let us be the ones to speak in love, speak the truth in love, in season, at the right time, during the right circumstances. And just remember this today. Love always considers others and is willing to endure all things, to endure all things. You know, sometimes in order to share truth, you're going to have to endure some abuse, maybe. You might even have to endure some criticism. But if you speak the truth uncompromisingly and bring it in love, it has the ability to open the hearts of those that you're communicating to. It is the love of God that opens their hearts, arrests them in their hearts. And when we come with the love of God and the truth of the gospel, the truth of God's salvation plan to people, it opens their hearts. So today, go today and be uncompromising in sharing truth. But remember, let's share the truth on the rails of God's love and the attributes of God's love. Let that be the rail upon which we communicate truth to other people. Have a wonderful day, and remember, you are blessed with heaven's best.